The crystal chambers of Nexus Prime stretched impossibly high into the artificial sky where 847 different species had gathered for the most important vote in galactic history, and Counselor Vextar stood at the center. Podium with his ancient reptilian eyes, scanning the massive crowd of alien delegates who had traveled from across the galaxy to decide the fate of a small blue planet called Earth. The Zephyrian diplomat had lived for over 6,000 years and had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but never had he witnessed such heated debate over a single species, and the humans of Earth had become the most controversial topic the Galactic Council had ever faced. And today, they would finally decide what to do about them. Ambassador Quinn Dal floated near the upper levels of the chamber where the psychic energy beings preferred to gather, and her translucent form pulsed with nervous light as she prepared to present 3 centuries of observations about the strange creatures who lived in the Sol system, and the data she had collected painted a disturbing picture of a species unlike any other in known galactic history. The humans had been discovered by accident when a routine survey mission detected unusual energy signatures coming from their star system, and what the survey team found shocked them because these primitive beings were advancing at an impossible rate, and in just 200 years they had gone from simple agriculture to splitting atoms and building weapons that could destroy their entire world. General Thorkmas slammed his massive fist against his chair as he stood to address the assembly, and the Brutaxian warrior was known throughout the galaxy for his strategic mind and his ability to identify threats before they became dangerous. And he had been studying the humans longer than anyone else in the chamber, and what he had learned terrified him. The human homeworld was a beautiful blue marble, covered in oceans and continents where billions of these strange bipedal creatures lived in thousands of different groups that constantly fought each other over resources, territory, and ideas that they called religions and politics, and their entire history was written in blood and war and conquest, and yet somehow they had also created art and music and literature that moved even alien hearts. Vextar called for order as the debate grew louder and delegates from different species began arguing among themselves about what should be done, and the Etherian contingent believed the humans could be guided and taught to be peaceful, while the Cronan Empire wanted them destroyed before they could become a threat, and the Nexari suggested immediate containment until they could be properly studied. The evidence against humanity was overwhelming, and they had fought 2 massive world wars that killed millions of their own kind, and they had built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their planet several times over, and their pollution was slowly poisoning their atmosphere and oceans, and they showed no signs of learning from their mistakes, and yet they continued to advance technologically at a rate that defied all known patterns of species. Development Ambassador Quindal began her presentation by showing holographic images of Earth taken over the past 3 centuries, and the assembled delegates watched in fascination and horror as they saw the humans spread across their planet like a virus, consuming everything in their path and building massive cities that glowed with artificial light and covering their world with roads and machines and structures that reached toward the sky. The psychic being explained how human technology had advanced from simple tools to complex machines in an impossibly short time, and most species took tens of thousands of years to develop spaceflight. But the humans had gone from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years, and now they were sending probes to other planets in their system, and it was only a matter of time before they developed faster than light travel. General Thorkmas stood again, and his voice boomed across the chamber as he described the human capacity for violence and warfare, and he showed recordings of their conflicts where they used increasingly sophisticated weapons to kill each other, and their military tactics evolved constantly as they learned from each battle and adapted new strategies and technologies, and he warned that if they ever turned this aggressive intelligence toward other species, the galaxy would face its greatest threat. The Brutaxian general had studied human military history extensively, and he was amazed and terrified by their ability to learn from defeat and come back stronger, and they had a saying that what did not kill them made them stronger, and this philosophy seemed to drive everything they did, and they never gave up no matter how hopeless their situation appeared, and they had a disturbing tendency to turn their worst disasters into their greatest triumphs. Delegate Morgath from the peaceful Sylvani Collective argued that humanity might simply need guidance and that many species had violent histories before they learned to live in harmony, and the Sylvani themselves had once been warriors before they discovered the path of peace, and perhaps the humans could be taught to control their aggressive instincts and channel them into productive pursuits. But Counselor Zeknari from the ancient Voidwalker civilization countered that the humans were fundamentally different from other species, and their rate of advancement was completely unprecedented, and they seemed to have an unlimited capacity for both creation and destruction. And no species in galactic history had ever shown such rapid technological development combined with such persistent warfare. The debate continued for hours as delegate after delegate stood to voice their concerns and opinions, and some argued that the humans should be left alone to develop naturally, while others insisted that they posed too great a risk to galactic civilization, and a few radical voices even suggested that Earth should be destroyed before the humans could spread beyond their star system. Vextar listened to every argument carefully, because as council speaker, it was his responsibility to ensure that all voices were heard before the final vote, and he had seen many species rise and fall during his long life, and he understood that this decision would echo through galactic history for millennia to come, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance as the debate reached its climax. Ambassador Quindal presented her final piece of evidence, and it was a compilation of human communications that their observation posts had intercepted over the years, and the delegates listened in stunned silence as they heard humans talking about reaching for the stars and exploring the galaxy and making contact with other intelligent life, and their curiosity and determination was both admirable and terrifying. The humans seemed to possess an insatiable desire to explore and learn and discover new things, and they were constantly pushing the boundaries of what was possible, and they refused to accept limitations that other species took for granted, and this relentless drive to expand and grow made them unpredictable and potentially dangerous. General Thorkmas concluded his argument by pointing out that the humans had managed to achieve in centuries what took other species millennia, and if they continued at this rate, they would soon develop technology that could rival the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and once they left their star system, there would be no stopping them, and the galaxy would have to deal with a species that combined advanced technology with primitive aggressive instincts. The final vote was called, and Resolution 2847 Omega was read aloud to the Assembly, and it stated that humanity would be contained and controlled for the greater good of galactic civilization, and a containment field would be erected around the Sol system, and Earth would be quarantined indefinitely, and no human vessel would be permitted to leave their star system. Delegates from 847 species cast their votes, and the chamber fell silent as the results were tallied, and when Vextar announced that the resolution had passed by 12 votes, the relieved sighs and worried murmurs filled the crystal halls, and humanity's fate was sealed. As the council session ended and delegates began to disperse back to their home worlds, none of them noticed the small observation drone that had been recording everything from the shadows of the chamber, and the device silently transmitted its data to a receiving station hidden in the asteroid belt of a distant star system where the information would be analyzed and studied by minds that had been watching the Watchers. 6 months after the Galactic Council made their decision, the containment fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, and Admiral Kessara stood on the bridge of her flagship watching as 300 ships from various alien species took their positions around the human star system, and the Nexari commander had 4 arms and skin that shifted colors based on her mood, and right now her skin showed the deep blue of determination mixed with the silver of uncertainty. The massive fleet represented the combined military might of dozens of civilizations, and each ship was equipped with weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could withstand the explosion of stars. And yet Admiral Kessara felt strangely nervous about their mission, because the humans had proven to be unpredictable in every observation the Council had made. Captain Marcus Torres stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station Alpha and stared at the displays showing hundreds of unknown contacts surrounding their solar system, and the former United States Navy officer had been chosen to lead Earth's defense forces after the world governments finally unified in the face of the greatest threat humanity had ever known. The alien ships were massive beyond anything humans had ever imagined, and their technology was clearly far superior to anything Earth could produce, and the largest vessel was easily 10 times bigger than the International Space Station, and its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and strange energy patterns danced across its surface like living electricity. Dr. Yolanda Reeves worked frantically in her laboratory at the United Nations Xenobiology Institute, trying to analyze every scrap of data they could gather about the alien fleet, and the brilliant scientist had spent her entire career preparing for the possibility of first contact. But nothing could have prepared her for this scenario, where humanity was clearly the inferior species facing an overwhelming force. President David Chen sat in the emergency bunker beneath Geneva, where the newly formed Earth Unified Government had been hastily established, and the former Chinese diplomat turned world leader faced the impossible task of speaking for all of humanity in their darkest hour, and every decision he made could determine whether the human race survived or perished. Admiral Cassara had studied human languages extensively during the voyage to Earth, and she was particularly fascinated by their ability to communicate complex ideas through such primitive vocal sounds, and she had chosen English as the primary language for contact since it seemed to be the most widely used among the human population. The Nexari admiral activated the communication system, and her message was broadcast simultaneously to every human receiver on Earth and throughout their star system, and her words were clear and measured as she delivered the containment protocol that would change humanity forever. The message was simple and terrifying, and Admiral Cassara explained that humanity was now under galactic quarantine by order of the Galactic Council, and any attempt to leave the Sol system would be met with force, and Earth was to remain isolated until the Council decided what to do with them, and resistance would be futile given the overwhelming technological superiority of the containment fleet. Panic spread across Earth like wildfire as billions of humans learned that they were not alone in the universe, and that their new alien neighbors considered them too dangerous to be allowed freedom, and riots broke out in major cities as people struggled to comprehend that their entire species had been judged and found wanting by creatures they had never even known existed. President Chen called an emergency session of the Earth Unified Council, and representatives from every nation gathered to decide how humanity should respond to this unprecedented crisis, and some argued for immediate surrender, while others called for defiance, and a few suggested trying to negotiate with their captors. Dr. Reeves analyzed the alien transmission over and over, looking for clues about their technology and culture, and she noticed that the message had been delivered in perfect English, with no grammatical errors, and an understanding of human psychology that suggested extensive study. And this meant the aliens had been watching Earth for a very long time. Captain Torres coordinated with military leaders around the world to assess Earth's defensive capabilities, and the results were depressing because humanity's most advanced weapons were nuclear missiles that would barely scratch the paint on the alien ships, and their space-based defenses consisted of a few satellites and the International Space Station. But something unexpected happened that surprised Admiral Cassara and her crew, because instead of surrendering or cowering in fear, the humans began transmitting responses, and they were not pleas for mercy or offers of submission, but rather formal requests for diplomatic contact and clarification of their legal status under galactic law. Dr. Reeves had convinced President Chen that their only hope lay in communication and understanding rather than futile resistance. And she had spent the past 6 months since the aliens arrived studying their technology and behavior patterns, and she believed the aliens were not mindlessly aggressive, but rather following some kind of legal or bureaucratic procedure. The human response caught Admiral Cassara completely off guard, because in her 3 centuries of military service, she had never encountered a primitive species that tried to negotiate from a position of complete powerlessness, and most newly discovered civilizations either submitted immediately or fought desperately and pointlessly until they were destroyed. President Chen personally delivered humanity's response in a carefully crafted message that Dr. Reeves had helped him write, and he acknowledged the superior technology and authority of the Galactic Council while respectfully requesting formal diplomatic contact and the opportunity to understand the charges against humanity and the legal basis for their quarantine. The human president spoke with dignity and intelligence that impressed many of the alien commanders, and he did not beg or threaten, but simply asked for the same rights and considerations that any civilized species might. expect, and his calm demeanor and reasonable tone suggested that humans might be more sophisticated than the Council had assumed. Admiral Kesara found herself in an unprecedented situation because the containment protocol had been designed for dealing with either submissive primitives or hostile aggressors, and the humans were neither, and their request for diplomatic contact was technically reasonable under galactic law, but no one had ever expected a quarantined species to invoke such procedures. Captain Torres noticed something interesting about the alien formations, and their positioning suggested they were more concerned with keeping humans inside the solar system than with attacking Earth. And this gave him hope that the aliens might be open to negotiation rather than conquest, and he began developing plans for peaceful contact rather than desperate defense. Dr. Reeves made a breakthrough when she realized that the alien ships were using quantum communication systems that operated on principles that human physicists had theorized but never been able to implement, and she began working with teams of scientists around the world to analyze every detail of the alien technology they could observe. The Nexari admiral consulted with her fellow commanders, and they agreed that the human response was sufficiently unusual to warrant reporting back to the Galactic Council, and after much debate, they decided to allow a small human delegation aboard the flagship to deliver their formal request in person. President Chen carefully selected the human delegation, and he chose Dr. Reeves for her scientific expertise, and Captain Torres for his military experience, and Ambassador Jinwoo Park for his diplomatic skills, and the team would represent all of humanity in their first face-to-face meeting with an alien civilization. Jinwoo had been South Korea's most experienced diplomat before the world government was formed, and his ability to navigate complex international negotiations made him the perfect choice to speak for humanity, and he had spent months studying every detail. They could learn about alien psychology and behavior from their transmissions and observations. The human delegation prepared carefully for their meeting with Admiral Kesara, and they brought detailed proposals and technical analyses that demonstrated humanity's intelligence and potential value as allies rather than threats, and they hoped to convince the aliens that cooperation would be more beneficial than continued quarantine. Dr. Reeves compiled comprehensive data about human civilization, including their art and literature and scientific achievements, and she wanted to show the aliens that humanity was capable of beauty and wisdom as well as warfare and destruction, and that their aggressive instincts could be channeled into positive pursuits. Captain Torres developed security protocols for the delegation because they would be completely vulnerable aboard an alien ship, and he also prepared intelligence gathering procedures so they could learn as much as possible about alien technology and capabilities during their visit. The small human shuttle approached the massive alien flagship. Admiral Kesara wondered if she was making a terrible mistake by allowing these dangerous primitives aboard her ship, but her curiosity about their unexpected behavior had gotten the better of her military caution, and she was about to learn that underestimating humans was a dangerous mistake that would change everything. The human shuttle docked with Admiral Kesara flagship, and Jinwoo led the delegation through corridors that seemed to pulse with living light while strange symbols floated in the air around them, and the Nexari vessel was unlike anything humans had ever imagined, with walls that shifted and flowed like liquid metal and gravity that somehow worked in different directions in different sections. Dr. So Young walked behind Jinwoo while her trained physicist mind cataloged every detail of the alien technology she observed, and she noticed that the ship's power systems operated on principles that human science had only begun to theorize, and the energy flows she detected suggested they had solved problems that Earth's greatest minds considered impossible. Commander Min Ho kept his expression neutral, but his military training allowed him to automatically map the ship's layout and identify potential escape routes and defensive positions, and the former Republic of Korea Navy officer had commanded submarines in some of the most dangerous waters on Earth. But this alien vessel presented challenges unlike anything he had ever faced: security. Chief Da-Yun appeared to be simply following the group, but her intelligence officer background meant she was constantly analyzing the aliens they encountered and their behavior patterns and security procedures, and she noticed that their guards seemed more curious about the humans than concerned about potential threats. Admiral Kesara waited in her command chamber, where the walls displayed star charts that covered thousands of light years and showed the positions of countless alien civilizations that humans had never dreamed existed, and when the human delegation entered, she was surprised by their calm confidence. Because most primitive species were overwhelmed by their first sight of advanced technology, Jinwoo stepped forward and bowed respectfully in the Korean manner before speaking in perfect English that he knew the aliens would understand, and he thanked Admiral Kesara for agreeing to meet with them and expressed humanity's desire to understand their situation and resolve any misunderstandings that might exist. The Korean diplomat had prepared extensively for this moment, and he carried a portable device that contained detailed legal analyses that human scholars had compiled based on their observations of alien behavior, and they had somehow deduced significant aspects of galactic law from studying the patterns of the containment fleet's deployment. Dr. So Young presented technical analyses that stunned the alien officers because the humans had somehow figured out basic principles of how their ships operated just from external observations, and she showed detailed diagrams of alien power systems and propulsion methods that should have been completely beyond human understanding. Commander Min Ho delivered a military assessment that demonstrated human strategic thinking and their ability to analyze complex tactical situations, and he pointed out weaknesses in the containment formation that the aliens had not expected any primitive species to notice, and his calm, professional manner impressed the alien commanders. Security Chief Da-un provided intelligence reports that showed humanity had been tracking alien movements and behavior patterns throughout the 6 months of containment, and the humans had compiled detailed profiles of different alien species and their ships, and had even identified communication protocols and command structures. Admiral Kesara found herself increasingly amazed by the human presentation, because these supposedly primitive beings had somehow learned more about galactic civilization in 6 months than most species learned in decades, and their analytical capabilities were far beyond anything the Council had expected. Jinwoo presented humanity's formal legal challenge to the containment, and he cited what humans had deduced about galactic legal precedents and argued that humanity had been condemned without proper representation or due process, and he requested a formal trial before the full Galactic Council. The Korean ambassador's argument was sophisticated and well-reasoned, and he pointed out that the Galactic Council's own laws required that any species facing quarantine must be given the opportunity to defend themselves and present evidence in their favor, and humanity had been denied these basic rights. Dr. So Young explained how human scientists had reverse-engineered alien technology principles and had already begun developing improved versions of human equipment based on what they had learned, and she showed theoretical designs for faster-than-light drives and quantum communication systems that had been developed entirely from observational data. The alien officers were shocked because the humans had somehow learned in months what had taken some civilizations centuries to develop, and their ability to understand and adapt alien technology was completely unprecedented in galactic history and suggested capabilities that the Council had never suspected. Commander Min Ho presented military scenarios that showed how humans would respond to various threat situations, and his strategic analyses demonstrated that humanity would never surrender easily and would continue to find new ways to resist and adapt, no matter how overwhelming the opposition appeared. Security Chief Da-un quietly observed the alien bridge crew and their procedures, and she memorized security codes and guard rotations and ship layouts and all the information that might be useful if the humans ever needed to take hostile action against their captor's admiral. Kesara realized that she was facing something completely outside her experience because these humans had not just been passively accepting their quarantine, but had been actively studying and learning and preparing, and their intelligence gathering capabilities were remarkable for such a primitive species. Jinwoo continued his legal arguments, and he pointed out that humanity had committed no crimes against galactic civilization and had never attacked or threatened any alien species, and their quarantine was based on fear and speculation rather than actual wrongdoing and violated basic principles of galactic justice. The Korean diplomat had somehow figured out that the Galactic Council operated under legal frameworks similar to international law on Earth, and he used these parallels to construct arguments that would be familiar to alien legal experts, and his understanding of galactic politics was surprisingly sophisticated. Dr. So Young presented evidence that humans were not inherently violent, but were actually remarkably adaptable and capable of learning from their mistakes, and she showed how human civilization had been gradually becoming more peaceful even as their Technology Advanced Commander Minho argued that human military capabilities could be valuable allies for galactic civilization rather than threats, and he pointed out that humanity's rapid adaptation and strategic thinking could help solve problems that had challenged other species for centuries. Security Chief Daeun noticed that some of the alien crew members seemed sympathetic to the human arguments, and she identified potential allies among the ship's personnel who might be willing to help humanity if negotiations failed. Admiral Kasara found herself in an impossible situation because the humans were technically correct about their legal rights, and their arguments were sophisticated and well presented, and she did not have authority to grant their requests, but she also could not simply dismiss their claims. The Nexari commander realized that the human delegation was not just presenting legal arguments, but was also gathering detailed intelligence about alien technology and capabilities, and every moment they spent on her ship gave them more information about galactic civilization. Jin Wu sensed that Admiral Kasara was uncertain about how to proceed, and he pressed his advantage by formally invoking humanity's right to trial before the Galactic Council and demanding that their case be heard by the full assembly rather than decided by military commanders. Dr. So Young presented her final technical analysis, and it included theoretical improvements to alien technology that human scientists had developed, and some of her suggestions were actually better than current galactic standards, and demonstrated that humanity could contribute to galactic civilization rather than just threaten it. Commander Minho concluded his presentation by offering human military expertise to help solve galactic security problems, and he suggested that humanity's rapid adaptation abilities could be valuable assets in dealing with unknown threats that the galaxy might face in the future. Security Chief Daeun completed her intelligence gathering, and she had memorized enough information about alien technology and procedures to write comprehensive reports that would help Earth's scientists and military leaders understand what they were facing. Admiral Kasara made her decision, and she agreed to forward humanity's legal challenge to the Galactic Council and request an emergency session to address their claims, and she warned the humans that this was unprecedented and might lead to even harsher measures against Earth. As the human delegation prepared to return to their shuttle, Jin Wu thanked Admiral Kasara for her fairness and promised that humanity would abide by whatever decision the Galactic Council reached, and he expressed hope that the two species could eventually become allies rather than enemies. The shuttle departed from the alien flagship, and the human delegation knew that they had achieved something remarkable by forcing the galaxy's most powerful civilizations to treat humanity as more than just primitive threats. And whatever happened next, they had proven that humans deserved respect. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 weeks after Admiral Kasara forwarded humanity's legal challenge, and Counselor Vexitar stood once again at the central podium, but this time the atmosphere in the crystal chambers was completely different because what should have been a simple containment operation had become a complex legal and diplomatic crisis. Advocate Hyun Soo entered the vast chamber as humanity's first representative to argue before the Galactic Council, and the former International Court of Justice lawyer had spent her entire career handling the most complex legal disputes on Earth, but nothing had prepared her for representing her entire species before hundreds of alien civilizations. Dr. Taemin accompanied her as humanity's expert witness, and the Seoul National University anthropologist had become Earth's leading authority on comparative civilization studies after analyzing every scrap of information about galactic society that humans had managed to gather during their months of captivity. Engineer Yoon Ji followed quietly behind, carrying technical equipment that contained humanity's most sensitive secrets, and the former Samsung electronics researcher had been working with teams of scientists around the world to reverse engineer alien technology, and what they had discovered would shock the entire galaxy. Counselor Vextar called the session to order and explained that this was the first time in galactic history that a quarantined species had successfully invoked their right to trial, and the unprecedented nature of the situation had forced the Council to carefully review their legal procedures and precedents. The ancient Zephyrian looked out over the assembled delegates, and many of them were clearly uncomfortable with the idea of allowing primitive humans to address the Council, but galactic law was clear about the rights of accused species, and even the most advanced civilizations had to follow proper legal procedures. Advocate Hyun Soo rose to speak and her voice carried clearly through the chamber's translation systems as she began humanity's defense, and she thanked the Council for respecting galactic law and allowing humanity to present their case, and she promised to show that the quarantine was both illegal and unnecessary. The Korean lawyer had studied galactic legal precedents obsessively, and she had found dozens of cases where species had been wrongly judged based on incomplete information, and she began by pointing out that humanity had been condemned without ever being given the chance to explain their actions or demonstrate their true nature. Dr. Taemin presented his analysis of human civilization, and he compared humanity's development to other species that had joined galactic society, and he showed that while humans had experienced conflicts, their overall trajectory was toward greater cooperation and peace, just like every other successful civilization. The anthropologist explained that human warfare was not evidence of inherent evil, but rather a natural part of their species' development, and he pointed out that many current Council members had violent histories that they had eventually outgrown, and humanity deserved the same opportunity to mature. And evolve engineer Yoon-ji began her technical presentation, and she showed the alien delegates examples of human technology that had been developed through reverse engineering alien observations, and what she revealed sent shockwaves through the entire assembly because the humans had accomplished things that should have been impossible. The Korean engineer explained that human scientists had been studying the containment fleet for months and had learned enough about alien technology to begin developing their own versions, and she displayed holographic projections of human ships that incorporated advanced propulsion systems and weapons that matched or exceeded current galactic standards. Counselor Vextar called for order as the chamber erupted in surprised voices and alarmed discussions because no primitive species had ever demonstrated such rapid technological advancement, and the implications of what the humans had achieved were staggering. General Thorkmas stood and demanded to know how the humans had managed to develop advanced technology while under strict quarantine, and he accused them of somehow stealing alien secrets or receiving help from unknown allies within galactic civilization. Engineer Aeon-ji calmly explained that humans had developed everything through observation and analysis, and she showed detailed breakdowns of how human scientists had deduced alien principles from external sensor readings and visual observations and mathematical modeling. The revelation that humans could reverse engineer advanced technology just from watching it work was deeply disturbing to many council members because it suggested that humanity's learning capabilities were far beyond anything they had encountered before and could pose an even greater threat than originally feared. Advocate Hyun-soo continued her legal arguments, and she pointed out that the original vote to quarantine humanity had been based on fear rather than evidence, and that humans had never actually threatened or attacked any galactic civilization, and their punishment was therefore unjustified under galactic law. Dr. Taemin presented historical data showing that human conflicts had been steadily decreasing in frequency and severity even as their technology advanced, and he argued that humanity was naturally evolving toward the same peaceful cooperation that characterized other galactic civilizations. Engineer Yoon-ji revealed her most shocking evidence when she showed the council recordings from inside their own chambers during the original vote to quarantine humanity, and the assembled delegates gasped in amazement as they realized that humans had somehow managed to place surveillance devices in the most secure location in the galaxy. The small observation drone that had recorded the original council session was revealed to be human technology, and engineer Yoon-ji explained that it had been deployed months before the vote, using a miniature faster-than-light drive that human scientists had developed in complete secrecy. General Thorkmas roared in fury as he realized that humans had been watching the Watchers and had known about the containment plan before it was even implemented, and this meant that everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. Counselor Vextar demanded to know how long humans had possessed faster-than-light technology, and engineer Yoon-ji calmly explained that Earth had developed limited FTL capability shortly after the first alien surveys of their system and had been quietly observing galactic civilization for years. The revelation sent shockwaves through the council because it meant that humans were not primitive at all, but were actually a spacefaring civilization that had been pretending to be less advanced than they really were, and their entire assessment of human capabilities had been based on deliberately misleading information. Advocate Yun Su pressed her advantage and argued that humanity's deception had been justified self-defense because they had correctly identified the threat that galactic civilization posed. To their independence and freedom, and their actions had been entirely legal under galactic law. Dr. Taemin explained that humans had chosen to appear primitive because they had observed how the galaxy treated newly discovered species, and they had decided that revealing their true capabilities too early would result in immediate conquest or destruction. Engineer Yunji showed satellite images of Earth that revealed the true extent of human technological development, and the planet was covered with advanced manufacturing facilities and research centers and defensive installations that had been carefully hidden from alien observation. The images showed massive shipyards in Earth's asteroid belt, where humans had been quietly building a fleet of advanced warships using technology reverse-engineered from alien designs and improved with uniquely human innovations. General Thorkmas demanded to know how many ships humans had built, and Engineer Yunji smiled as she explained that Earth's defensive fleet was already larger than most galactic civilizations possessed and was growing rapidly as more facilities came online. Counselor Vexitar realized that the Council faced an impossible situation because they had not contained a primitive species, but had instead educated and motivated an advanced civilization that was now prepared to defend itself with technology that matched their own. Advocate Hyun Soo concluded her presentation by formally requesting that humanity be granted immediate membership in the Galactic Council with full rights and privileges, and she pointed out that humans had already demonstrated their technological and intellectual capabilities. Dr. Taemin argued that humanity could contribute valuable knowledge and perspectives to galactic civilization, and that their rapid adaptation abilities could help solve problems that had challenged other species for millennia. Engineer Yunji offered to share human technological innovations with other council members as a gesture of goodwill, and she explained that cooperation would benefit everyone, while continued hostility would only lead to unnecessary conflict. The council chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the full implications of what they had learned, and they realized that they were no longer dealing with a containment operation, but with first contact between equals, and the balance of power in the galaxy had suddenly shifted. Counselor Vexitar called for a recess so that delegates could consult with their governments about this unprecedented situation, and as the chamber emptied, many aliens looked at the small group of humans with new respect and no small amount of fear. The Galactic Council reconvened after 3 days of emergency consultations between member civilizations, and the crystal chambers buzzed with nervous energy as delegates returned to face a reality that none of them had anticipated. And Counselor Vexitar knew that the next few hours would determine the future relationship between humanity and the rest of galactic civilization. Admiral Ki Hyun stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Seoul as it held position just outside the Sol systems containment perimeter, and the former Republic of Korea Air Force pilot commanded a fleet of 60 advanced warships that had been built in secret over the past year, using technology that humans had developed through careful observation and brilliant engineering. Ambassador Subin prepared for what would hopefully be humanity's final diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council, and the former Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs official had been chosen to serve as Earth's first permanent representative to galactic civilization, and her success or failure would determine whether humans joined the galaxy as equals or faced destruction as threats. Director Wu Jin coordinated Earth's response from the newly constructed Galactic Affairs Department in Geneva, and the former Seoul National University political science professor had become humanity's leading expert on alien psychology and diplomacy, and his team had been preparing for every possible outcome of the Council's deliberations. Admiral Kesara watched her sensors in growing amazement as more and more human ships appeared throughout the Sol system, and the vessels that materialized were not the primitive craft she had expected, but sophisticated warships that incorporated advanced alien technology with innovative human improvements. The Nexari commander realized that the containment fleet was now outnumbered and outgunned by the human defense force, and worse yet, the human ships demonstrated capabilities that exceeded many galactic military standards, and their weapons and shields were powered by energy sources that should not have existed. Counselor Vexitar called the session to order and announced that the Council would vote on humanity's request for immediate membership. But first they would hear final statements from both supporters and opponents of the proposal, and the chamber fell silent as the most important debate in galactic history began. General Thorkmus rose first, and his voice shook with anger, as he argued that humanity had deceived the Council and violated galactic law by secretly developing advanced technology and deploying surveillance devices and building military forces while pretending to be harmless primitives. The Brutaxian general insisted that humans had proven themselves to be duplicitous and untrustworthy, and their rapid technological advancement combined with their history of warfare made them too dangerous to be admitted to galactic civilization. And he recommended immediate military action to eliminate the human threat. Ambassador Quindel floated forward, and her psychic energy form pulsed with conflicting emotions as she argued that humanity's deception had been justified by the Council's own hostile intentions, and that humans had acted in legitimate self-defense when they discovered the plan to quarantine their species. The Etherian diplomat pointed out that humans had never actually attacked any alien civilization and had only revealed their true capabilities. When forced to defend themselves in a legal proceeding, and their actions demonstrated wisdom and restraint rather than aggression. Delegate Morgath from the Sylvani Collective spoke in favor of human membership and argued that humanity's rapid learning abilities could benefit all galactic civilizations, and that their unique perspective might help solve problems that had challenged the galaxy for millennia. Counselor Zekanari from the Void Walker civilization expressed concern about humanity's unpredictable nature but acknowledged that their technological innovations were impressive and could contribute to galactic advancement if properly channeled through Council oversight. Ambassador Subin stood to deliver humanity's final statement, and she thanked the Council for their consideration, while acknowledging that humans had indeed deceived them about their capabilities, and she explained that this deception had been necessary for humanity's survival. The Korean diplomat argued that humans had studied galactic civilization carefully and had observed how newly discovered species were treated, and they had concluded that revealing their true nature too early would result in conquest or destruction rather than peaceful contact. Subin pointed out that humanity's actions had actually demonstrated their respect for galactic law because they had chosen to seek legal redress rather than simply fighting their way out of the containment when they possessed the military capability. To do so, Director Wu Jin monitored the proceedings from Earth and coordinated with Admiral Ki Hyun to ensure that human forces remained in defensive positions while making it clear that they were prepared to fight if necessary, and the careful balance between diplomacy and deterrence was crucial to humanity's survival. Admiral Kasara received orders from the Council to withdraw her containment fleet immediately, and she complied while wondering how everything had gone so wrong and how a simple quarantine operation had turned into a first contact scenario with equals. The Nexari Admiral sent a private message to Admiral Ki Hyun expressing her professional respect for human tactical capabilities and suggesting that their two species might find common ground as military professionals, even if their governments remained suspicious of each other. Councillor Vextar called for the final vote on Resolution 3156 Beta, which would grant humanity immediate full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and privileges normally reserved for established spacefaring civilizations, and the chamber fell silent as delegates prepared to cast their votes. The voting process took several hours as each of the 847-member civilizations registered their decision, and the tension in the chamber was unbearable, as the future of human galactic relations hung in the balance. When the results were announced, Councillor Vexistar's voice carried a note of amazement, as he declared that Resolution 3156 Beta had passed by a significant margin and humanity would be welcomed as the newest member of galactic civilization effective immediately. The crystal chamber erupted in a mixture of celebration and concern. Murmurs as delegates absorbed the implications of the historic vote, and many aliens looked at Ambassador Subin with new respect, while others worried about what this precedent might mean for future first contact situations. Admiral Ki Hyun received the news aboard his flagship and immediately ordered the human fleet to stand down from combat readiness while maintaining defensive formations, and he sent congratulations to the diplomatic team for achieving what many had thought impossible. Ambassador Subin delivered humanity's acceptance speech, and she expressed gratitude for the Council's wisdom, while promising that humans would be responsible members of galactic civilization and would contribute their unique capabilities to the benefit of all species. Director Wu Jin began implementing the massive bureaucratic changes needed to integrate Earth into galactic civilization, and his department faced the enormous task of establishing trade relationships and cultural exchanges and diplomatic protocols with hundreds of alien species. The Korean official knew that the real work was just beginning, because joining the Galactic Council was only the first step in a process that would transform both humanity and the galaxy itself. And the challenges ahead would test every aspect of human adaptability. And wisdom, engineer Yoon-ji was invited to join the Council's Technology Sharing Committee, where her insights into rapid reverse engineering and innovation quickly made her one of the most valued members, and human technological perspectives began influencing galactic research and development. Dr. Taemin established the Human Cultural Exchange Program, which introduced alien civilizations to human art and literature and philosophy, while helping humans understand the rich diversity of galactic civilization, and the cultural bridges he built became foundations for lasting friendships. Admiral Ki-hyun was appointed to the Galactic Defense Coordination Council, where his strategic expertise and human military innovations helped improve galactic security, and his partnership with Admiral Kasara became a model for interspecies military cooperation. 1 year after the historic vote, humanity had established diplomatic relations with over 200 alien civilizations, and Earth had become a major center for galactic trade and research. And human cities hosted alien visitors, while human explorers traveled to distant worlds. The transformation was remarkable, but perhaps the most surprising change was in the Galactic Council itself, because human representatives brought new perspectives and problem-solving approaches that revitalized galactic civilization and helped solve ancient disputes through innovative compromise. Ambassador Subin reflected on how far humanity had come from the dark days of quarantine, and she realized that the Council's attempt to control humanity had actually given humans the motivation and opportunity to join galactic civilization as equals rather than subjects. Counselor Vextar privately admitted that the Council had learned as much from humanity as humans had learned from the galaxy, and the rapid adaptation abilities that had once seemed threatening now provided solutions to problems that had challenged galactic civilization for millennia.